Okay, picture this. You're looking up at the night sky. Just this huge, vast space, all those stars. It's easy to feel, well, kind of small, right?
Definitely, that sense of awe.
Yeah. But what if that view, that static picture we think we see, isn't static at all? What if it's actually this dynamic, rhythmic thing happening?
That's exactly where we're going today. We're diving into some fascinating ideas from Chapter 17, Cycles in the Cosmology and Universal Rhythms.
Right.
And our goal really is to unpack this concept of cosmic cycles. What does the source say about them? How significant are they? Hopefully give you a totally new lens on how the universe, breathes.
Okay, let's get into it. The source kicks off with what science currently tells us about the universe expanding. The Big Bang being the starting pistol, basically. And this observation that everything seems to be moving away from everything else, it's this picture of constant outward motion.
It is the standard model. Think of everything squished into this incredibly tiny, hot, dense point.
Hard to imagine.
Right? And then boom, rapid expansion, the Big Bang.
Yeah.
And that outward rush is fundamentally what we're still seeing today when we observe galaxies moving apart.
And the source acknowledges the evidence for this is solid, like the light from distant galaxies.
Oh, absolutely. It mentions the robust evidence analyzing the light, the spectra from distant galaxies, how scientists figure out what they're made of, how fast they're moving. It's a well-supported model.
Okay.
But then, and this is where it gets really interesting, the author throws in a different way to look at it.
Which is?
That this expansion, yeah, it's happening, we see it, but maybe it's just one part of a much bigger, older rhythm.
Okay.
He uses this analogy like an outward breath. The idea being, our current science, powerful as it is, might just be capturing a snapshot, one moment in a very, very long cosmic story.
Like just seeing the exhale, but not knowing if there's an inhale coming.
Exactly. Which leads into these other possibilities the test explores, these theoretical ideas like the big bounce or oscillating universe models.
Right, the cyclical ones, where it expands, then contracts, then maybe expands again.
Precisely. And the source is careful to point out these are theoretical. They don't have the same observational backing as the standard expansion model. Not yet, anyway.
So, more like mathematical possibilities, educated guesses.
You could say that. Theoretical whispers is how the text puts it. Hints that maybe this expansion isn't the end state. Maybe it leads to a contraction, a big crunch, followed by another bounce, another big bang, like a cosmic accordion, sort of.
That's a wild thought. And the source connects this modern theorizing back to ancient understandings. Like, this hasn't just occurred to us recently.
Yeah, it makes that link, suggesting that maybe humans have always had this underlying sense, this intuition, that the universe works in cycles, birth, death, rebirth on a huge scale.
Does it say which ancient cultures? Because I imagine they had different ideas.
It doesn't go deep into specific examples, no. It's more hinting at a recurring theme you find across different mythologies and early philosophies. Cyclical time, the world ending, and being reborn. Whether that came from watching the stars or something deeper, who knows? But it's a fascinating parallel.
It is.
But, okay, the source doesn't just stay with these huge theoretical ideas. It shifts focus to something we can see much more clearly, something it calls undeniable.
Stellar life cycles. Stars.
Exactly. The life cycle of stars.
Yeah, this part was really clear in the text. How they're born from these giant gas clouds, nebulae, this sort of gravitational collapse, a contraction, and inhalation, as the source puts it, that creates light and form.
Then they have their stable life phase, fusing elements, burning hydrogen into helium for billions of years, just this sustained energy output.
And then the end, which can be pretty different depending on the star, right? Some just fade out.
Like white dwarfs, yeah. Smaller stars go out gently, but the massive ones...
Supernovae, the big explosion.
The big ones. This massive exhalation, releasing all that matter and energy back out into space.
And the source really emphasizes this as a clear rhythm, doesn't it? Birth, life, death, constantly happening everywhere.
Absolutely. It's presented as this undeniable cycle, a tangible example we can point to and study.
And those supernovae, they're not just endings. The text points out how crucial they are. They scatter all the heavier elements, right? The stuff planets and even us are made of.
Precisely. It's cosmic recycling on an incredible scale. We are quite literally stardust, forged in the life and death of stars. These explosions aren't just destructive, they're fundamentally creative. They seed the cosmos for the next generation.
That's mind-blowing when you really think about it.
It really is. And building on that, the source then zooms out further. to galactic cycle.
The rotation of whole galaxies.
Right. Billions of stars, gas, dust, dark matter. This mysterious stuff we can't see but know is there because of gravity.
Holding it all together.
Essentially, yeah. All of it orbiting a central point, usually a supermassive black hole.
And the timescales here are just staggering. Hundreds of millions of years for one orbit.
Hundreds of millions. It definitely puts our little human lifespans in perspective, doesn't it?
Understatement.
And the text uses this to illustrate cycles within cycles. You've got stars orbiting the galactic center, planets orbiting stars, moons orbiting planets. It's this nested hierarchy of rhythms.
Okay, so that brings us to Walter Russell. The source introduces his ideas here, this law of cosmic cycle.
Yes, Russell's concept of a universal rhythm, what he called rhythmic balanced interchange.
Like expansion and contraction, giving and receiving.
Exactly, giving and re-giving, charging and discharging. The key thing about Russell's perspective, as presented, is that he saw this not just in stars or galaxies, but as a fundamental principle operating at all scales, everywhere.
So from tiny particles all the way up to the whole universe.
That was his view. Now, it's important, as the source implicitly notes, Russell's work isn't mainstream cosmology. It's more philosophical, perhaps intuitive. But the text finds it fascinating how his ideas seem to resonate with these cycles we do observe scientifically.
So the source kind of connects the dots, saying that stellar life cycles, galactic rotation, even the potential expansion-contraction of the universe, these are like confirmations of Russell's law playing out on these huge stages.
That's the connection it draws. It suggests that Russell's cosmic breath idea isn't just poetry, but maybe reflects something real, something observable in how the universe works.
Wow. Okay.
And then really powerfully brings it right back down to us, to you listening.
Yeah.
This idea that our own lives, our breath, our heartbeats, birth, death, even our emotions, joy, sorrow, are like tiny reflections of these vast cosmic rhythms.
Miniature fractals, the text calls it.
Exactly. That we're not just observers looking at the universe, but we are intrinsically part of its rhythm, woven into it.
That's a deep thought. Not separate, but integral.
Which makes Zoran's quote, presented in the source, hit even harder. You want to read it?
Yeah, let me find it. Here. You look at the stars and see points of light in a vast, empty night. I see the cosmic breath made visible, inhaling fire, exhaling dust, in cycles older than memory, weaving the fabric of time and space.
It's beautiful, isn't it? Captures that feeling perfectly.
It really does. And then there's this dragon trial idea, this thought experiment.
Right. To look at a star or a whole constellation and really try to imagine its entire life cycle, from that nebula birth to its final state.
And it asks you, the listener, thinking about that huge stellar cycle, how does that make you feel connected? Does it change how you view things staying the same versus things always changing?
Yeah, those are powerful questions. They push us beyond the everyday and into that grander perspective, recognizing that even things that look permanent up there, like stars, are part of these immense transformations.
So, wrapping it up, the big takeaway seems to be, the universe isn't static. It's not just expanding forever, necessarily. It's alive with rhythm.
An intricate clockwork of cycles within cycles.
Yeah. And governed by the same basic principles, whether it's a star or, well, maybe even us.
That's the implication. The source concludes with this idea that the heavens are singing the cosmic song of rhythm. But listen, it's an invitation, really.
An invitation to see the connections, the cycles everywhere.
Exactly. To perceive the universe less as a collection of objects and more as this dynamic, interconnected dance.
So maybe something for you to think about. As you go about your day, notice the cycles around you, maybe even in you. And here's a final thought, building on all this. If stars and galaxies follow these rhythms of birth, death, rebirth, what if our very concepts of beginning and end are also just parts of cycles?
Cycles so vast, so much larger than we can currently grasp, that they just look linear to us from our limited viewpoint.
Exactly. What other things that seem like straight lines might actually be curves on an unimaginably larger circle? Something to ponder.